Happy noon. Good noon. Good noon.
Good noon, everyone. Yes.
Good noon, everyone. Good noon.
It's Monday again.
It's Magickal Monday, which is why we're coming to you live from wherever we are. And wherever you are, we're in the same place right now. Hopefully. If you were here.
We're on this planet together.
I sometimes wonder.
Well, no, sometimes the planet, yes, gets a little stuffy and we leave, I suppose.
Let's have a look. See where we're at. Oh, there's people joining us. If you can see us and everything is working as it's supposed to be, please do tell us.
Well, this says, again, stream perfect, but viewers 0, yet we can see.
It's a lie like a cheap watch. I think this is what happens. So we'll see. Apparently we'll just carry on in good faith and somebody will say hello. I'm seeing traffic. It's like, yeah, perhaps I should be wearing white gloves directing traffic, and all that fun stuff. I know, it's all good stuff.
All right.
So, there's stuff going on. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm hoping it's working. If you can see us, do say hello. That will reassure us in this wonderful sort of
technologically
challenged land that we are in fact live, because it says we're supposed to be working.
There is going to be a Mercury retrograde. And that's always very. Yeah. But that's honestly like the least of what's going on.
Wasn't really sure what was going on, but there were a bunch of people waiting. So let's see what's going on here. Hopefully something. Unless it's sucked everybody off into a strange land of somewhere.
You just never know if it's actually working or not.
There you go. Wendy says
Monday.
Happy Monday. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that. Actually, now we know we're not just speaking to the
languishing in obscurity somewhere.
Well, I think we do that well. We'd like to be less of a well-kept secret.
There is that,
you guys can help. I think it's working now. I'm seeing stuff working the way it is, and somebody's already hitting the like button. Thank you so much for that. We like that.
Okay.
We like our likes. All right. So now we know everything's working properly. We might as well get on with our show. What a seamless start. So what are we going to talk about this wonderful Magickal Monday?
Well, I, of course, want to talk about astrology because I'm always interested in astrology.
She's always talking about she astrologizes everything.
Well, we joke that may you live in interesting times is kind of like a curse.
We are living in interesting
but
times. But
we definitely are living in very interesting astrological times that much of which we haven't seen in our lifetime and won't see again.
Hey Karen, thank you for saying hello. Appreciate that.
I definitely next week I will talk about the lunar eclipse. The solar eclipse and the second new moon in Aries. But I'll talk about that.
It's total in parts of the world, isn't it? This time, but
it's a hybrid. But I'll talk about that.
Okay,
next Monday.
So
the
if you're
17th.
If you're into eclipses, come back next week.
We'll talk more about that happening. But there's some crazy stuff going on with that. So this month's going to be a bit of a mover and a shaker.
We've had some challenges, I have to say. Technologically, this month there's been challenges. It's like I found out over the weekend that our mail just wasn't working.
Well, there's solar flares and all kinds of things happening as well. But
I don't think it was that. I think
no,
it was
I understand.
optimum,
but I'm just saying this. I had said before that people had felt this kind of aggression and tension with all the planets in Aries. But we also have to understand that there's a huge shift happening, a generational shift.
Yeah.
That is really happening quite rapidly. So the outer planets, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are all shifting signs.
You would call them the generational planets, wouldn't you?
Right.
I guess.
Well, because Saturn takes about 30 years to make an orbit.
Wow.
So it's, I say about 30 years. It can be like up to 3 years in a sign.
Hello,
sometimes longer than that. But it's roughly about, but 3 times 10 is 30, and we have 12 signs. So.
Right.
Yeah. So that one doesn't see the same, Saturn sees the same sign about once every 30 years.
Yep.
So, depending on how long we live, we experience a Saturn return around 30, around 60, and then again around 90.
I just had my
So,
second Saturn return.
I just had my second Saturn return. So we can see that one and look backwards to see what the future's predicting. In other words, like when I had my first Saturn return, what was I doing? And what was the kind of focus of things? So it's interesting for me, my first Saturn return, I have Saturn in Aquarius.
Right.
Is when we made the big move to New Paltz.
Oh, yeah.
And the shop is, finishing up its first Saturn return while I'm finishing up my second. And when we first moved to New Paltz, there was this big resurgence of people wanting to connect to higher consciousness and because Saturn has now moved into Pisces. And this would have been around the time when we were just getting rolling in New Paltz. And there seemed to be this resurgence of the esoteric nature of things. People wanted to look into the higher consciousness. Okay. So that one is one that we can kind of look back on.
Right.
Now, Uranus takes about 85 years
Oh, God.
to make a full journey. So we're not going to see
A Uranus return?
two of those,
Probably not.
right? And
You're
then,
lucky
of course,
if you get one, I'm thinking.
the outer planets that are further out, even bigger shifts. And it's because of this cycle being so different, we don't usually see all four of these outer planets making this big shift in a short period of time. But Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are all shifting signs over this next 3-year period.
Oh, wow.
Even though something like Pluto is in the same sign for 20 years or so.
That doesn't make a quick tour of the zodiac, does it really?
No, it's about 280 years to get round. Okay.
Right.
Roughly. So we see something else when we look at these planets.
What do we see?
We see that they are all leaving earth and water signs to move into fire and air signs. So we're going from that, I don't want us to make you think that water and earth signs are inferior, but earth grounding,
Stable.
right? Water emotional, right? So there was a lot of focus in this generation on finances and healthcare and ancestry, and you can think about all of those things that would go with the elements of earth and water.
Right.
And now they're moving into fire and air. So there's more of this focus on moving quickly, fire, and higher consciousness, air, understanding. And Pluto's moving into Aquarius. So if we look at all the things that Aquarius stands for, because Pluto empowers the sign that it's in.
Right.
So there's this humanitarian, environmental focus. There's the possibility for an industrial revolution.
Oh, no. The first one was bad news.
Right.
Well, good news and bad news.
Right. But this one I think we'll see more in technology and transportation.
Oh, okay.
Right. So the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was in the late 1700s, like 1777, 1789.
1777, wasn't it? That was like the year after America was formed.
Right.
So America is having a
Pluto return.
interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is
Curious.
very interesting. So,
So
whenever a planet moves into a sign, it retrogrades a little bit and then goes back. It gives you always that last chance to get it right.
so forgive me, I'm obviously not as well versed astrologically as you are, but my understanding of Pluto is almost like it's got this Kali type aspect to it. It's almost like creator destroyer, and it's almost like it smacks things down and rebuilds them better.
Right. So say destroyer creator.
Destroyer creator.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's a cycle, isn't it?
It's like life, death, and rebirth.
You have to sometimes to improve something, you have to like knock it down and start again, kind of thing.
Right.
So this could be interesting for our nation. You think?
Oh, big time. Right. So for 2023, we're going to see Pluto move into Aquarius and then retrograde into Capricorn. One last chance to get it right before it moves on into Aquarius in 2024 for about 19 years, about 2 decades. So these next 2 decades, this next generation, we're going to see Pluto emanating through the sign of Aquarius, or empowering the sign of Aquarius.
Well, that's fascinating because Aquarius really...
we're in the Aquarian age.
This is the humanitarian sign. If ever there was a humanitarian sign, I think the Aquarians are the humanitarians of the zodiac. You know,
well, they love humanity. They just don't like people.
Well, okay, okay, but I think this is about the need to embrace all and make better and nurture.
Right.
Whereas Capricorn is very kind of cold. And you know,
right, because you're talking about Saturn,
monetary, you know, and
right.
all about finance.
Saturn being the ancient ruler of both Capricorn and Aquarius. But when we think about that, Saturn through Capricorn is emanating through an earth-grounded, financial, very protective energy, where Saturn through Aquarius, emanating through that air, the last air sign, is really more about technology, thoughts, intellect, understanding,
but with a humanitarian bent.
Right. But air and fire signs tend to be a more aggressive energy and a less emotional energy. What have you got there?
Helena Rose, if I've mispronounced your name, please forgive me. She says, yes, true. Aquarians love humanity, not people.
I know, I'm one too. All right.
Well,
so
people can be difficult.
I think it's really interesting when we look at the revolutionary leaps forward. Like revolution is a good Aquarian word too. Right?
Well, that implies a circle as well. It revolves, you know. Oh,
it's Rhonda.
Yes. Hello,
okay.
Rhonda. Explains so much.
So if we look at the impact on a collective or a generation, right? Again, I said 1777 through 1798. Those 2 decades when Pluto was last in Aquarius was the Industrial Revolution, right? But some of the other planets were in different places. This time, Neptune is going to be in Aries. So there's going to be, again, that electrified kind of quick creative energy, right? And Uranus is going to move out of Taurus into Gemini. So again, communication, technology, computers, travel, aviation, just like a very golden age, I think. I have a lot of little
made notes.
Cryptic notes, right? That I want to...
This is somebody who plans things on the back of a napkin, I'll have you know.
Yeah.
But she's made notes in her little notebook.
Yeah, because I think that it's interesting to think that these next 3 years, the signs are moving out of water and earth into air and fire. So it's setting up the next generation to be less grounded, less emotional, more light, more intelligence. and more able to separate, right? The fire and air signs are more able to
Discern.
separate from that emotional,
Yeah, well, sometimes we can get adrift in a sea of emotions, and I think that happens to a lot of people. They become emotionally overwhelmed, and yeah. Whereas sometimes you can go the other extreme and become completely dispassionate, and quite cold and calculating. But I think Aquarius is probably the opposite of that. They're certainly not dispassionate.
Oh,
and
no.
they're certainly not cold and calculating.
Well, they can be cold.
They can be, they can be
They can hold a
reserved in
grudge.
their emotions. They can be reserved in their emotions, I think. But no, if I've discovered you're actually allergic to me. I think that
so,
is what
yeah,
the
I
problem
think.
is. Oh dear, what are you going to do? But it's interesting that it's almost like episode 3. Is it 3? Where did Star Wars start? 3?
Oh, it's
New Hope?
Episode 4.
Episode 4 was the
was
start,
Star
was it?
Wars.
A New Hope. And it almost is that. It is almost like we've seen Pandora's box open.
Because we did
We've
4,
seen
5,
some-
6, and then we did 1, 2, 3, didn't we? I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway.
If you're a Star Wars fan, square us away. Yeah, it's almost like we've seen some horrible things, and I think we're going to see some awful things still to come. I think this year could be tough because when old bastions don't want to let go,
Oh, right.
and
If you're
the
going to try to
fight
tear
against
something
change,
down, it's going to
yeah.
fight. Yeah.
The fight against change is terrible sometimes, and you can get these really entrenched viewpoints and. Well, we're seeing what it's like. You've only got to taste the rise in extreme right-wing authoritarianism, and imperialism almost.
Right.
We've
Well-
seen some horrible miscarriages of justice.
This is what I'm trying to say is this is a big spiritual shift.
Right.
We're going from people thinking that they are these victims. I'm sorry. I'm generalizing. I'm not saying that every earth sign or every water sign.
I think
but-
you're right.
But the water and earth signs tend to not be as aggressive, so they stay the victim. Where the air and fire signs are like, bring it. The war is on. you
Yeah,
know?
this is the thing. I mean, oh my gosh. We don't like to get embroiled in political stuff, but it is inherently, I guess, innately woven into the tapestry of life. And you look at those 3 people who actually stood up in Tennessee, the Tennessee 3, we'll call them for
Right.
a better word.
That's
of that.
very air and fire.
Look at that. Suddenly these guys are empowered, yeah? They're not, oh, you can do nothing anymore, And so,
Again, that was the time frame of Martin Luther King.
Exactly.
Was the first tick on the clock of the age of Aquarius. And
Mm-hmm.
now the last, this is the next tick or the real move into this Aquarian age. And there really be these next 3 years, 3 years that talk about the next 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a part of a tick on a clock. They're going to really ask people to raise their vibration, right? Fire and air lift things. Water and earth ground and wash things. Think about the difference just on an elemental level, right? Fire and air lift things, change things. And I think we're going to go from our panic mindset, pandemic, Pluto, panic mindset, fear, poverty, all these worries, and raise our vibration and replace that hate with love, and raise our vibration and do the love generation again, but in
in a different way.
a different way,
less
because the
hedonistic.
other planets are
Less hedonistic. I mean, we're all horribly hedonistic in the 60s, It was all about free love and what can we do for us. But now I think there's this sea change. It's a paradigm shift, and it is interesting times we live in, because we've we've almost completely screwed up our planet to the point of inhabitability, where we can't actually live here anymore. We're faced with difficult climate crises. The window of opportunity to do anything about it is getting awfully close to closed. And so people are finally waking up and saying, enough now. Now we're going to do something about this. And I think this, but it's not hedonistic. It's what can I do for me? And I get it. I mean, in our generation, all of us needed a bloody therapist,
Right,
look at my woes and troubles and all this needs sorting out.
We're all the Pluto and Virgos.
But there's this, I think, with this fresh step forwards,
It's a big shift.
It's people are saying we can do something.
But you're
going to
see
and
this
we're going to do something about
real
this.
struggle this year because some people do not want to change. But I mean, if we just compare it to a regular relationship where one person grows in a direction spiritually, like say people meet and they're like this,
right,
and one person is growing and the other person is growing. But the one who's raising their vibration is really pulling away from the one who's growing that way. And it's much harder for them to
find common ground.
Again, because, so we're talking about the planet itself being asked for its inhabitants to raise their vibration. And not everyone will want to meet that change. So I think you're going to see this year a lot of kind of push me, pull me. But I do think that a lot of people will wake up. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is transits.
Yes, and we're not talking about a van made by Ford at this point either. Let's just take a moment and just chime in with lots and lots and lots of people here because they're going on. Hello, Sag Girl. We might do a couple of readings later. If you definitely want one for you, just become a channel member and we'll give you one right away. Haha, how's that for a plug?
Well, we're going to do some Monday night free readings, but not today. This is our regular program.
Helen Rose is I think, very much on your wavelength here.
Well, she's an Aquarian, so's Gilda.
Oh, hello, Gilda. Yeah, reserved in my emotions, I agree.
In fact, different years, but Rhonda and I have the same birthday, just different years.
Oh, well, okay.
And good afternoon, Chris. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hello, Chris. Hello, Shannon. Yes, well, thank you for joining us, and a wonderful Monday to you. Beautiful sunny day it is today here in the northeast.
All right.
So transits.
You guys know that we were friends with Bob Zoller, who sadly has passed away, right?
What a terrible loss.
And not this Monday night. I teach astrology class tonight, but maybe next Monday night, and definitely the last Monday of the month. Anyway, so Bob Zoller,
also an Aquarian.
In fact, a blue-eyed redheaded Aquarian, but we have a different rising sign. He had Pisces rising. He was into mapping astrology,
Horary astrology.
That's time. Astrocartography.
Oh, he did astrocartography.
In other words, say like, this is the birth of this nation, and this is this nation's natal chart. So now we can see what the transiting planets will do to affect that nation. Right?
Okay.
So we commonly think of 1776, July 4th. The planet is our country is Cancerian.
Assuming you're in the good old US of A right now, that's what we're talking about. Yeah. Obviously, July 4th, 1776 is claimed to be the birthday of the United States of America.
And we know that if the sun is the god, the bringer of life, the moon as the goddess gives birth to the people, if we want to kind of expand out a little bit in our thinking.
Fascinating.
Right?
Fascinating.
So we may be a Cancerian sun.
Right.
But our moon is very late degree Capricorn. So our nation is going to be affected by these moving planets.
Emotionally, yes.
Because there will be what's called a conjunction and some squares and some oppositions made by these planets that are moving. So Capricorn wants to remain in power, right? It likes Pluto's power. But Aquarius says, oh no, it's time to break down that power, right? We're going to break down the hierarchy. We're going to break down these big banks. We're going to break down this fear and panic. We're going to break down. So we're going to experience this by the aspects it's making to our moon, because the moon is like the power of the people.
It's the emotional underpinnings, I guess.
Things that are hidden, but the power of the people, right? Yes, the sun sign is the power of what's visible.
Okay.
And the moon sign is the power of what's hidden.
Right.
So when you start to look at the countries that are going to have their moon affected by this generational revolution, right? The USA is going to experience this upheaval much like it did in the 60s, but with a few different players.
Yes, the 60s was an interesting time, wasn't it?
And
not that I remember it.
Let's think about other countries that have their moon or ascendant between 28 degrees Capricorn and 3 degrees Aquarius, because that's what this year is going to see Pluto do.
I bet it's quite a few.
It's the tail end of Capricorn into the beginning of Aquarius. It goes back in a few degrees into Capricorn, and then it goes back over those first few degrees Aquarius, and then 2024 it stays in Aquarius for 19 years. So this coming year, the rest of this year, is going to really affect countries that have their moon, the power of the people, between 28 degrees Capricorn and 3 degrees Aquarius. I will give you a short list.
Go on then. Well, the USA is one of them. Yeah.
Russia.
Oh.
China.
Oh.
Israel.
Oh.
Saudi Arabia. And then, no pun intended, to a lesser degree, because of other things, the Netherlands, Peru, and India. But the big hits, generational, revolutionary, technological, humanitarian, travel, the United States, China, Russia, Israel, and Saudi Arabia.
Okay, I don't know much about the others. This is where I expose my terrible weakness in geopolitical knowledge, but I can see one commonality in quite a few of those countries, and it's down to authoritarianism. We've had a former incumbent of the White House who really thinks he ought to be king, and didn't want to relinquish power at all, and that's a given over here. Putin has ensured that he's going to be remain leader of the country for the rest of his natural life. Same with Xi Jinping as well. Also, Benjamin Netanyahu, if I'm sorry. Netanyahu. Yeah, sorry guys. These words, they're difficult for me.
They don't want to relinquish the power. Capricorn emanation of Pluto.
Oh, looky. Ooh. Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my! There's
this year is
this whole
power struggle shift.
It is
of a generation.
Power struggle, isn't it? And it really is. And yet you've got these young uppity folks, as they've been accused of, like in Tennessee,
they're responding to the revolution.
Stood there and spoke up for their constituents. Which is what they've been elected to do.
Elected by the people.
For the people.
For the people.
That's the beautiful idea of the USA is a government of the people, for the people, by the people. not an authoritarian regime, not for the privileged few. You know, the ideal that America is based on is wildly optimistic.
Right. And if you think when we talk about the transits of outer planets, we give what's called an orb, right? Where, in other words, we would call a conjunction where two planets are coming together, we would call a conjunction from 3 degrees prior to 3 degrees after. And that's why we have that 28 degrees to 3 degrees variable, because that's Pluto is still going to be felt, and that's also where Pluto is moving. But when you think about it, the United States, China, Russia, Israel, Saudi Arabia, those are the big five.
Wow.
Now, also, there are going to be some really harsh squares made. The United Nations is going to have, the United Nations sun is at 0 degrees Scorpio. So Pluto and Aquarius will square that. But that will be very visible. That will be very visible. So I think there's going to be a huge focus on the United Nations this year, visible changes.
You said the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
That's where the International Criminal Court lies.
Okay.
The Hague.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And both the ICC and the UN are people, and they're built to support human rights. I think that's the idea.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. Like,
to prosecute war crimes in the case of the ICC, you know.
right. People could say, "Oh, well, you're just some
stuff.
Fruit Loop crazy esoteric astrologer," but it is written in the stars what's happening.
And the UN is supposed to prevent atrocities, you know, like one nation. But again, there's still nations. The UN is not properly put together because people have veto power, and there shouldn't be a veto power in the UN. Really, there shouldn't. It shouldn't be one nation that can go.
Oh,
no,
here's another one that's very interesting. When we look at the ascendant, we say that's what you show the world, right?
It's the mask you wear, isn't it?
It's what you put out there, right? It's how you appear.
This is fascinating, guys.
Well, NATO
NATO
ascendant is at 2 degrees Scorpio, which means the Pluto in Aquarian energy is going to square NATO's ascendant. So that's it's a harsh aspect that forces a change. And we've just seen...
Well, you know, we've just seen Sweden and Finland join NATO.
Yeah.
Or I know Finland has. I'm not sure if Sweden's quite there yet, but they're going to, which is the exact opposite of what Putin was trying to bring about.
Well, because Russia is now becoming bordered by,
double the length of its border with NATO countries. Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, if everybody works together, I mean, I remember, and honestly, I'm not that completely old and decrepit, but I remembered a hope going back, you know. There was a hope that somehow we'd come out of the Cold War and that the Berlin Wall fell and that there was this new spirit of glasnost and coming together and a hope, you know. But once again, it's almost like the authoritarian regime doesn't want to let go and it holds on to it. And, you know, and to be honest, to be really cynical, there's an immense amount of money is made out of Warcraft. There really is. And it's sad, really.
Right, but I think what we can do as spiritual people is kind of study that elemental energy. What are earth and water about? And look at these last 20 years, right? From like 2003 until now. Look at these last 20 years and the focus on earth and water energy. And then this is our year of transition, right? There's going to be ebb and flow and fire and, you know, all this kind of energy that's working to push
and
away.
struggle.
Yeah. And move into the energy of air and fire. And as witches, think about the difference, right? Water and earth pull things downward. When we look at the glyphs, they're a downward triangle and a downward triangle with a line.
So it's interesting that we have these two, you've got these two opposites, haven't you? You've got fixed earth and you've got fixed fire. And so you need those passive elements to introduce one to the other.
Air and water.
So the water's done the emotional thing, you have to appeal to somebody's emotions to implement change.
If you want to control someone, you definitely have to.
Hearts and minds,
you
isn't
definitely have to get into their emotional, what makes them tick, and let's rule them by fear or whatever else, right?
But fear is only the second most powerful force in the universe.
Love is the strongest.
Yeah.
And again, what is the true path to enlightenment? Love unto all beings.
It is.
The true path to enlightenment. And while we're moving into air and fire, there will be a big focus on enlightenment, on awakening. Right? Fire in the head.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Gosh, we got deep today.
Yeah.
We got deep.
So these, this next year is the change, and the next, say 10 years, we're working out the change, and then the last 10 years will be living that change until it moves on. Pluto will move on into Aries. No, I'm sorry. Pluto will move on into Pisces. I apologize.
Got to get through Pisces before we get Aries.
To Aries, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking about Neptune. But it really is going to be those who can release their fear, those who can connect to love, those who are open to enlightenment and change. And I think that we're all, we've all come through this feeling of aggression, and now we have to process that aggression, and some of us are feeling quite anxious and fearful.
Right.
So instead of allowing yourself to be in that lower vibration of anxiety and fear, work to lift yourself to the light that's being offered.
To transcend it.
Rise above. So say things to yourself like, I am loved, I am light,
I am worthy,
I am worthy, I embrace the light, I am, I
can
embrace.
make a change.
Yeah.
I can
be the change.
And I think this realization is starting to really sink in to a lot of people now. That and I would love to know. We're going to have to go back, and you can perhaps look this up for next week or whatever. But Mahatma Gandhi, what a character!
He said, "Be the change." Yeah.
He was the one who said, "Be the change you want to see in the world," and he came from terribly inauspicious.
Wasn't he from India?
Oh yeah. But he was not born into wealth and power by any stretch of imagination. But simply by utilizing the power of love, he became one of the most powerful forces, if you will, and still remains to be, even though he's no longer here. The legacy he left behind, that mindset, I think, has really impacted people. And that was something that was really big in the 60s, wasn't it?
People who are not enlightened think that hate is the opposite of love.
It is not.
But fear is the opposite
correct.
of love. Again, we have to make that clear.
No, hate is actually very closely based on love, But fear is play. Yeah, everybody plays upon your fears, and I mean this is how people get radicalized, and yet if we look at what's right rather than what's wrong, things get better. If you look at what's wrong and focus on what's wrong, all you see is flaws and faults, and what are you going to fix that with? Another fault, But yeah, these are interesting times.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Scary times, true.
Change times of
anxious
change.
Times. Change is never ever easy. It's never easy, especially where it's change of such a sea change. And there will always be those that take something positive and rob that energy and use it for their own good to the detriment of others. I think the Industrial Revolution, people who came up with this machinery and all this sort of stuff, and thought, well, this is great. We can now provide these goods to more people at a much cheaper price, so people don't have to, struggle
we
so
ran that
much.
whole gambit to the place of Capricorn and corporate greed. Do you see what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like, the Industrial Revolution was
Yep.
the birth of all this technology. Pluto in Aquarius,
Mm-hmm.
Pluto in Pisces, and we could probably follow this along to see even more creativity and changes in music and poetry and books, and look at how esoteric things grew and moved on. And then you have war with Aries, and you could look at that, break that whole 280-year period from 1798, when Pluto moved into Pisces, and look at that section of 20 some odd years. It could be as short as 13 and as much as 25. And if you mapped Pluto's moves through the whole thing, again, we get to, what are you looking at me like?
You're just triggering so much stuff, and I'm just remembering all this stuff. It's like suddenly I'm projected back to school.
History.
I'm remembering my history, and it is. I grew up in England, which was very close. I was born in Birmingham, just outside of the Black Country, and it was called the Black Country not because of its ethnicity, but because so much coal and wood was burned there. The skies were literally
And what
black.
years was that?
But
Could that have been Pluto and Taurus when they're digging in the earth?
It's I don't know. But I just wanted to say this before we get totally sidetracked. The whole birth of the Industrial Revolution, was I think the person who started it was a guy called Ezra Pound, if I'm not mistaken, who invented the seed drill, and this suddenly made the ability to grow and plant crops. It was the birth of mechanized farming, if you will. But the idea was he was seeing so many people in abject famine, and his motivation was, I can do something about this using machinery. I can make something work so we have these resources to care and feed people. Interesting that, from there we get the full late stage capitalism, where we've got Monsanto patenting things and suing people, if you
Leaky
some of
gut
their
syndrome.
seed, and all sorts of this. It's just gone. There will always be those who take something beautiful and utterly bastardize it,
and extort it and
extort it and rip people off.
But that's a fun project for astrologers. Get yourself an ephemeris.
Isn't this interesting?
And go back and see Pluto emanating through each of the signs. And again, it could be as short as a 10 or 11 year, because Pluto's orbit's very elliptical, and then other times we get it for a couple of decades. But you can see how it impacts history. And again, the other planets to look at. I know that we don't pay much attention to the outer planets. Some people think anything past Saturn that we can't see with the naked eye doesn't have an impact. But
it does exist.
Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto are generational. And if you look at what they were aspecting,
it's truly
fascinating
stuff,
science.
isn't it?
It's a fascinating science, but it's also, I would always say, an esoteric science, because you have to have an open mind to be able to put together the puzzle pieces.
But revolution is interesting. It means to turn, to revolve. Mm-hmm. So we're turning. So there's good revolutions, there's bad revolutions.
John Lennon got it. He wrote Revolution. That song. Have a look at that.
But this country was founded on revolution. That was the birth of it.
1776.
We got uppity and we said no. I'm sorry, we're not accepting this anymore.
What do we think was happening, right? If I've just said to you, a planet moves into a sign and retrogrades and then moves into a sign fully, and the last time was 1777. So 1776 was that.
Who was it? Andy Warhol who said the revolution will not be televised?
I don't know.
I don't know. If you do know the answer to that question, jot it down on a $20 note and mail it in to us, please.
Right.
Or you could just put it in the chat.
Anyway, please do like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, that would help a lot. And
Send
if
us
you're
a
not a channel member, please do consider being a channel member.
Yeah.
That helps us out a great deal.
And,
If you
and
join
think
us-
about watching the Celtica video, because we're really into trying to get that.
An opportunity
Set up.
has presented itself, so we're hoping we can move on that quite quickly, because there's a patch of land come up for grabs very
That we
close
think
to
is,
us that is ideal.
gettable, but
We think we can do it.
obviously we are not rich corporate
No,
bankers.
No, we can't afford to spend $27,000 on a bottle of wine.
Right. Anyway, so I think that
Yes.
that's quite a bit to chew on,
Oh,
and some homework if you'd like, or just play this again. And we are going to do the readings, I believe, for sure the last Monday, and if we can, the Monday before that. But Gilda is a channel member, so
yeah,
she can have a
Gilda
card.
and Shannon are here, so we should do a card.
Yes, and Shannon can have a card.
All right, so who's got the cards? Oh, you've got the cards.
I got the cards right here.
You've got the cards there.
But again, I want you to chew on the Pluto generational outer planet thing. And next week we'll talk about the second new moon in Aries.
Ooh, which is a solar eclipse.
Yep. All right. So
Fascinating. I think that might be interesting.
card for Gilda.
times. Card for Gilda.
Cards just don't lie.
Oh, hey. Not bad, actually. I think, let's see if you can figure out what your card is just by I tell you.
Oh, I'm seeing what
Distance.
she's saying. I'm sorry. I thought you meant what day are we giving the free readings. I'm in the shop reading most Fridays and Saturdays, but I had a very bad weekend, which you can tell I had to take medicine because my face is crazy.
Sorted you out, though. It sorted you out.
Yeah. So
Didn't need a trip to
my
the
motto
hospital.
is I'm feeling better every day, and the medicine worked. I didn't have to go to the hospital, but it's been a rough ride. But if you call, I should have openings Fridays and Saturdays. And I don't read on Psychic Fair, but we are pulling a card for you for your day, Gilda.
This is
Sorry
a good
about
card, Gilda. I think sometimes you need to, when they go low, you go high. I think that's what you have to do. This is about getting yourself in an elevated position. Maybe quite literally go climb a hill. It's going to be good for you. It's going to produce some endorphins. I think just the cardio there. And when you get to the top, somehow it's going to be clearer and it's going to trivialize your problems. Also, see 3 ships come sailing in. So this is good. It's good. You've got the 3 of Wands, and this is a really, really good card. So this speaks of so long as you can give yourself a degree of abstraction and see the overall picture. Remember the adage you've served, when you're up to your ass in alligators, it's hard to remember your objective was to drain the swamp. So sometimes just stepping back a little bit, or better yet, attaining an elevated perspective so you can see exactly what's going on and assess the entire situation from a distance enables you to make good prudential decisions. And I do actually see that things are coming in for you. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
My 2 cents is
I'll put it there.
a time to count your blessings.
Yeah. Why not?
Sometimes, I know this happens to me, we get very frustrated that things aren't the way we truly want them to be, and we start to beat ourselves up and think of the things that we don't have in place or the things that we haven't achieved. And I think today is a day to count your blessings and see all that you have done and all that you have achieved and all that you do take care of, rather than focusing on the heavy stuff. Be the light. All right. Card
All right.
for Shannon.
Your turn. Dun dun dun. And for Shannon. Ooh, I like it.
I think it's
Another 3.
about rebuilding. So things that have kind of gotten away from you, or this is for Shannon, by the way. Things that, yes, be the light. Things that have gotten away from you, or you haven't had time to pay attention to. I think you're going to go back and kind of reassess and rework foundations and like rebuild something, redesign it, rethink it, and get ready for the retrograde.
Which is an absolute perfect opportunity to revisit something. If you're like me and have got a million unfinished projects, I have now learned I can make Mercury work for me and just start focusing some things I haven't got. I love this card. This is actually one of my favorite minor arcana cards. I mean, at a trivial level, this could be simply you're doing a few bits of tidying up, home improvements, maybe a lick of paint here and there or whatever. But this is about building something that is far bigger than yourself. And it's quite interesting that what's going into here is this such a great lesson, but it's a lesson that comes from above. And, you know, eventually when we realize it, we start to become a very effective individual. So individually, each one of these three people can achieve pretty much nothing. This guy, the abbot, obviously wants to build a lasting edifice that's going to be around long after he's shuffled off this mortal coil. So he talks to this guy, who's the architect. Nowadays he'd turn up in a Volvo or a Saab, something like that. It's got these posh clothes. And he produces this plan. And from the plan, this guy, the master mason, executes it. So, idea, plan, action. Got that?
That's
idea,
the three.
plan, action. There's your sacred trinity, if you will. And if you use those, Shannon, by heck, you're going to achieve some incredible stuff. So ideas, you've got no shortage of those. Start working on them, and then actually, you know, make your
Revisit plans even if
Exactly.
you've had them done before.
Exactly.
Redesign, yeah.
This is a good card.
All right, and then card for the week for everybody.
Oh, you got to pull that.
Doodly-doo.
I didn't pull a good one last week.
Oh, this ain't much better.
Some untruths may come to light.
So this week is about, I think, screening. You know, this guy's a king, but he's drift on a rocky sea. So he might be saying some things that are valid, and then he might be hiding something. Or he might be trying to mislead you. So I think this week is about not allowing yourself to be misled.
Yes. Yeah. Pinch of salt. Remember critical thinking. And I often find when trying to discern if something is true and accurate, a simple acid test question is, are we coming at this from a place of love? Because if it's fear, angst, anger, retribution, etc., none of these are places of love, and none of them have a good outcome. So just bear that in mind. I think that's the important thing. All right?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Gilda. She's saying don't forget to hit the thumbs up.
Well, thank you. Yes. Well, Gilda's a member of our sweep team, and therefore will plug us shamelessly, and we thank you for it. We do.
All right, we've got so much to get on with today.
We have, and the sun is shining.
It's not quite an hour, but we definitely got to add critical thinking.
And critical thinking to Siri reminders. Yeah, that would be a good thing to do. Yeah, make America think again. That would be a wonderful thing. Because
All right.
I love it. Listen, we appreciate that you could have been anywhere in the world, yet you chose to be with us, and we're grateful for that. So thank you. Please do tell your friends. Let your friends know that we're here and that we're here every Monday. And I think we're going to aim to do give back readings the last Monday of the month. Is it something like that? Probably in the evening, we're thinking.
Yeah, the last Monday, probably from like 6 to 8 o'clock. And I'm not sure about next Monday. It just depends on what, you know, we have so many hats that it's really hard to do everything. So.
Mm-hmm. And Rhonda, if you do join the channel as a sweep team member, you get your membership back in karma points. Oh, that's the other thing. You expect, some of you probably didn't get your karma points email because we had a problem with our internet connection where our server's at. And whilst they replaced the modem, they unfortunately managed to close off port 25. So none of our mail
We've
went
had a
out.
bit of technological challenges, but we'll get there.
Took me a while to track it down, but
anyway.
so expect that later on today.
And Peggy, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you so much.
Everybody have a great week.
All right.
And we'll see you soon.
Yes, indeed. Be blessed, be wonderful, and yes.
Don't give in to the fear.
Let me find my mouse. Where did it go? It's gone all over the place. I got it now.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.